You are flying high on the Kist and Solak show. This is episode 222, brought to you by the fine folks at SB Nation and Bleeding Green Nation. I am your host, Michael Kist. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Kist NFL. That's Kist. As always, joined by the best doggone co-host in the game, Mr. 10-year streak without a bad day, is Benjamin Solak. Follow him on Twitter at Benjamin Solak. That's Solak. Ben. Reunited, and it feels so good. How you doing?
To say that was such, that was fun. It was a very standard intro. It felt like I'd never left. Right, there was no special. Oh, it's a unique for the season. Whatever. Just this is the intro that we do on the podcast that we still do all the time, and we regularly do.
This is totally normal. Nothing has changed. And for the gentle listeners, let's kind of qualify this because there has not been a Kist and Solak show in the feed for a while. Twitter is fake, and some people exist outside of Twitter. I don't know how they do it. I couldn't do it. I would love to be able to do it.
Remember when you got the job and you were like, I'm just never going to be on Twitter ever again? You know what you were doing yesterday, Mike? You were tweeting during the game.
That's right. I was at the bar live tweeting the game. I like poking Cowboys fans a little bit. But for the listener that does not know the news and we're entering the season and they see that there's a Kist and Solak show on their feed, basically what has happened is the Kist and Solak show is no more. So when the game happens on Sunday, you're going to get an instant reaction streaming to all the different platforms put up on the podcast feed. And that's going to be with a new addition to BGN, Eitan Shander, and I want to welcome him to the family here. And then also Jessica Town is going to be in that role as a sidekick there, and Jessica just did a fantastic job on the post game stuff for the preseason stuff. Has done a great job here at BGN for years now. So I'm really excited for that opportunity for her to kind of step up and step into the shoes that me and Ben wore for a while. I've been promoted to executive producer at SB Nation, so I oversee the 200 different podcast feeds that we have here, working directly with our full-time audio producers that we have deployed. Rachel Prevet here at BGN being one of them. She's been amazing. Did an excellent job in an interview with Jalen Hurts that is in the feed recently as well. So congrats to her for really stepping up for that one. Benjamin Solak, Ben. Yeah, you obviously have some news as well that we can act like is new, but let's share it.
Yeah. Did you notice something new, different about me? I did not plan this. This was the top hat on the pile because I just moved. So my hat's on a pile.
We're doing video, and Ben is wearing a ringer hat, and that is what's happening. If you're a podcast listener, Ben is making visual jokes. But Ben, tell us about what you're doing at the ringer.
They've promoted me, and I still don't know that people on podcasts can't see me. Yeah, no, I was very excited to get started at the ringer this summer, and so I started there in the beginning of August, which I was here, and then I was obviously at the Draft Network as well for people who follow just my straight up draft stuff, which it was awesome here, and it was awesome at the Draft Network, and I would have worked there forever and been very, very happy forever. With the ringer, it was a really big opportunity for me to jump up to doing national NFL coverage, which is a lot of fun. So now I'm on the Ringer NFL show, feeds twice a week. I'm on Mondays for recaps, right? So we'll record right after Sunday night, and we'll recap the entire NFL. And then on Fridays, I'm on the Ringer NFL show with Stephen Ruiz and Kalen Jones, going through the preview, right? So very similar to what we would do for our Eagles preview, offense versus defense, defense versus offense. What are we looking for? What are the schemes? What are the matchups? What are the trends? What are the bold predictions? That's everything that's on that Friday show from a league perspective. And then very similar to our Monday instant recap show. We don't do 3 words, which kind of sucks. But the rest of it is pretty similar, right? Here's what happened. Here's why it happened. Here's what's interesting about it. Here's what it might mean. And so for everybody who enjoyed that archetype and maybe wants to see that on a national scale, I'd love to have you. I'd love to have you subscribe. We're doing a ton of fun there. And then on Wednesdays, I'm on the Ringer Gambling Show, which is a separate feed, but it's NFL gambling. And again, that's my takes on the league, but it's from a gambling perspective. And we all know that Ben's a degenerate gambler. And so they have officially given me a feed now, which that got announced, and my mom just texted me, and it was just a gambling show in all caps, question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark, question mark. And I was like, dang. But anyway, don't let your mom follow you on Twitter. And yeah, I'm at the Ringer now doing that podcast stuff, and then writing about the league, and I'll be writing about the draft as well when that season comes around. So yeah, it's a lot of what I've gotten to do previously and what I've really enjoyed doing, but I get to do it from a national perspective, which is super fun. So it's a great team there. I'm very excited to be there. And I'm also really excited for BGN Radio as well, because in a very non-cursory way, it's really cool to see who the feed's gotten handed off to and how well it's doing. So congrats to you all, man.
Yeah, they're absolutely crushing it, and I have no worries coming into the season about this trade. I mean, I see the downloads every day, and I see the audience growth and everything like that, and I know the talent that we have in place here. So I'm very excited for that, and I feel like we've built a bench over the years, and we've made the right hires that we can withstand Michael Kist or Benjamin Solak leaving to do some different stuff. Ben, you mentioned your mom was maybe surprised about the gambling show. Is that the worst kept secret on the planet? How did she not know that you're a degenerate gambler?
Oh no, she knew. And every time, like I would like call them during the season. Like my dad's one of the dads who just like totally non sequiturs conversations because he just wants to know. Like he's like, I'm not dealing with like transitioning this. So we'd be in the middle of a conversation. He'd be like, "Did you bet this week?" I'm like, "Yeah, I bet every week." He's like, "What'd you do?" I'm like, "I lost money this week." Like, you should stop. Like, that's not how. You got to keep going. Like that's part of it. And so they're both very concerned that I'm just going to gamble myself into destitution and poverty, which I don't plan on doing. But it was not a good start for week one of the NFL season, if we're being honest. But no, it wasn't a kept secret so much as I think her main concern, as she communicated to me, was that like I would give bad advice and then people would find where I lived and killed me. Like that was kind of where her mind went. I was like, I don't really think that's how it happens, but what do I know? We'll find out if I'm living next year.
That's amazing. So we are going to talk about the game that we saw last night. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, gentle listener, I have zero notes for this. And normally I would set the table and be like, we're going to do A, B, and C. And then, Ben came on before we started and he was like, what are we talking about? And I'm like, I'm not exactly sure, but we could do some stuff and we can talk about some Eagles over under on their win totals and whatnot. But we did kind of want to qualify what we're up to now if you weren't in the know as we start the season and listeners start to filter back in to the feed. And just really just to say how excited we are for the state of BGN and kind of pass the torch there and just get together one more time before the season, like we promised the gentle listeners we would, and just kind of give our thoughts and whatnot. You might not want to hear my thoughts because obviously it's funny because people talk about like BLG and BGN gets together and they all decide to like trash a player or trash the Eagles or whatever the case may be. I don't know what conversation BLG has with his direct boss, but I know my conversations with my boss is like, we're in the hope business, right? We're selling hopium on the streets to people. We're hope merchants. That's what gets us to this point where at the beginning of the season, there's so much interest in the season because naturally throughout the offseason, and we know this from our SB Nation reacts, polls and surveys and whatnot, people's confidence level in the team goes up and up and up in the offseason when literally nothing has happened. It's just that separation of time from the team being bad to where we are right now. And I think we're seeing that with the Eagles. And maybe I'm going to be a little bit negative on this show, so I apologize for that. But that's my just gut feeling on it. Ben, when you kind of like think about what this team can be this year, I kind of think it's a punt year. And I think it's a punt year because the Eagles have the most dead cap in the NFL. Teams that have done that recently or have had that cap situation, they have the rosters that reflect it. I think we saw some of that in the preseason with the Eagles, right? You watch them get blown out by the Patriots because they don't have the quality depth. And preseason doesn't mean anything to me or anything like that. But I thought it was very, very clear that there are some deficiencies on this roster because of that cap situation. And people say that Howie Roseman had a good offseason. I would say, how? Because there was no money to spend. There was nothing to do. He put himself in this position. This is tied in with the criticisms with his other off seasons. We're in a bad spot because of Howie Roseman. So when I look at this year, I see it as a punt because next year, right, it's a totally different situation cap-wise. You can spend some money. You've got a clear picture on some players, whether that be Jalen Hurts, Jalen Reagor, Jordan Mailata, whatever the case may be. I feel like they'll be in a much better position next year to kind of rebuild this thing up. Is it a punt year to you, Ben, or are you a little bit more hopeful than me?
Look at how quickly he settled right back in to like his tirades, like Howie this and everything that. He tried to do at first. He'd be like, "Oh, I look at stats now. I look at polls," and then immediately just bang, right back to good stuff. I agree that it's a punt year. Punt years aren't necessarily bad, right? Like we frame it as like a punt in the sense that like, all right, we know we're not doing anything on this drive, i.e. scoring a touchdown, so we're going to punt. We know we're not winning a Super Bowl this year, so we're going to do something else to put us in a better position for the course of this game, right, over the course of just the franchise's duration. In this instance, it's clearly starting the young guys, right? Like the oldest Eagles receiver is 24.
Right.
Right. Like it wouldn't have been hard to find a vet min free agent to come in and like be Chris Conley and come play for us for a year and like give us a veteran presence. They elected not to do that. And you could have talked about like what that meant for Jalen Hurts' development, because certainly Hurts is another like young player they're trying to figure out, but they elected to go young. Sirianni believes he's a guy that can develop receivers. It's where he's made his hay over the course of his coaching career. And so he wants the young guys in the room and he wants time with them. He wants reps with them because he wants to make them better. And if he does that, he feels like, all right, I've done my job for this year. I've hit my goals for this year. Now we can go forward into year two. And hey, if we got Jalen Reagor right and Devontae Smith is good, wide receiver isn't that big of a need for us. And that's huge because wide receiver has been a big need for us for a while. We got a bunch of needs on this team. So if we can eliminate that need across the course of this year with the coaching, with the reps and the opportunity, then we've won this year according to the goalposts that we've set. We're not trying to win divisions or conferences or playoff games or championships, but that's the goalpost that we're trying to set. So in that way, certainly it is. I do think that the best way that I can construe it is for every Eagles fan who is really big on like they can overachieve this year, they can exceed expectations this year. I don't disagree. Like there's absolutely a world where this team is a weirdly good 10-win team because the defensive front stays healthy, eats bad offensive lines alive. We've seen that before. We've seen it win them a couple games before. The offensive line stays healthy. They're able to run the football down people's throats. They've really shown no heavy signs of being a heavy QB run team, which is frustrating. But if they have that in their back pocket and they've been saving it during the preseason, which would be great and smart and I'd appreciate, they could be a really, really good running team. They can't be like the Ravens, but Hurts is a problem with the ball in his hand. So you could have great offensive line, great running game, great defensive line, and you'll just beat the bad teams. You win a couple against the good teams. You'll be able to do some cool stuff play action pass-wise. Your running game is so good. And yeah, you win 9 games. You win 10 games. Like that reality does exist. I give you that reality. I think it's a really narrow reality because it requires so much health from your older players. And then also it requires your weak spots, wide receiver, corner, arguably like running back a little bit as well, to not be like debilitatingly bad. And right. I look at receiver and I look at corner and I see a lot of more realities in which those positions are detriments to the team than they are just like league average units. So the reality exists that this is a competitive year and they'll certainly investigate it. I just think it's a slim channel to hit, as it were.
Yeah. And there are positive things that you can take away from this season, right? They can still compete and be in games and kind of figure things out as the year goes on and improve as a team as the year goes on. And I mean, getting an answer at left tackle, if it's Jordan Mailata, that's no small feat, especially if he's as good as we think he's going to be. Getting an answer at quarterback with Jalen Hurts and watching him improve over the season would be fantastic. Like there are those tweets. It's like, they do the lineup of the players and it's like, who's going to stop this offense? And I saw one for the Eagles one day and I'm like, probably a lot of people to start the season, but that's fine. Let's not let our expectations go like crazy and understand what we're trying to accomplish here, because this was one of the worst offenses in the league last year. If Sirianni and Hurts and the wide receivers that are there and the contribution they get from the tight ends and the protection and the run blocking they're able to get from the line, if that allows them to be even a league average offense, that is a huge step. That's a huge positive step in the right direction. And I would be thrilled with that, right? Because I think this year, Nick Sirianni, and we're going to talk more about him, but Nick Sirianni in this young coaching staff is in a really hard position. And I'm really kind of withholding judgment from them, right? I kind of want to see how it evolves, the mistakes they make within the first, 8-9 weeks. And then I want to see what happens on the back half of the season. Have they figured stuff out? Are they evaluating the personnel to a point where now we have some firm answers are just like, we know what's going on? Is the execution better? Are there less penalties? Do we look more cohesive? Is there an identity? Are the players buying in? is there trouble in the locker room? Like, what's going on to that extent is something that I think we don't figure out until the second half of the season. So I want to reserve judgment on Sirianni, but I'm also concerned about Sirianni. And I told you before the show that I have some rapid fire takes, so I might as well start there, because I want to see if you have the same concern that I have with Sirianni. My first take, and I just wrote down bullet points, throughout over the weeks and whatnot. Nick Sirianni's ascension is super weird. Let's talk about that, because okay. He goes from an IUP high school wide receivers coach to Kansas City offensive quality control coach, like out of nowhere. Like, what is that about? How did him and Todd Haley hook up? What's going on with that relationship? And look, I'm not saying this, but like Todd Haley, by the way, this is just a sidebar. Todd Haley has a super interesting, open life, super fun dude. It seems like really enjoying his post-football career. Shout out Todd, living your best life after the NFL. But that's like a weird dynamic to me. And then he goes up and even with the Colts, like the Colts didn't have this like bombastic, earth-shattering, we got to hire this offensive guru that Frank Reich is grooming type of year. They had a pretty doggone good year. They got a pretty doggone good year out of Phillip Rivers. I like the offense. I like Sirianni. Nobody else was calling Sirianni. Right. And like guys like Brian Daboll, who me and Ben were like, holy crap, we would love for Daboll to be able to come to Philadelphia, the Bills offensive coordinator. From what we hear, the Bills rejecting the Eagles' request to interview him was Daboll just saying, no, I don't want to go talk to that team now. Right. And part of it, I think, is because of the mess of the organization that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman have created. And they had to go hire a guy that nobody else was interviewing. And part of that, to me, right, with Howie Roseman, he doesn't want another Chip Kelly type of guy, right? Because that challenged his authority before when things were starting to go wrong for him, and he almost got booted the heck out of there. Now I'm worried personally that Nick Sirianni is going to be like clay in Howie Roseman's hands. He's going to be a yes man. He's going to be a puppet. He's going to be happy to be here type of guy. And like he could still do a good job, but he's also probably Howie's going to probably try to walk all over this guy. Am I wrong in being concerned about that? Because I like Sirianni, I like the energy. I think he's got the temperament for the job, but there are a lot of just concerns there, and he's going to be handcuffed and walked over by Howie, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, like what? But the thing is, like, to me, like this entire conversation is independent of Sirianni, right? Like the Eagles don't have a head coach. They fired Doug Peterson. Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are running the search. Given what we know about the Roseman-Peterson era Eagles, when Peterson was hired, it was somebody that would be good for the offense and good for the locker room, but like they didn't have a lot of faith in him to be like a decision maker, right? Like they wanted Jim Schwartz to run the whole defense, and then after the 2016 season, they were like, hey, maybe Jim Schwartz would run the team. Yeah. Like he should be the head coach, right? Peterson never had the level of influence over the roster that you would expect for a Super Bowl winning, generally successful head coach, right? When you're a rookie head coach, whatever, fine. But like the better you do, and he won a championship, which is the best that you could do, the usually more you get like input into how the offense should be constructed from a roster building perspective. So once that job is opened, your Brian Dabolls of the world are going to go, okay, well, I'm not going there because I like, Kyle Shanahan was on the Flying Coach podcast produced by The Ringer, baby, with Sean McVay and Peter Schrager. And he said a lot of really, really cool stuff. But the one thing that always really, really stuck out to me was how like he didn't think he was going to take the Niners job before he took the Niners job because he was really, really oriented on having control over like front office stuff, like having roster, but like he like, knew what he wanted. And he went to the Niners interview and was like, this is what I want. And the Niners were like, yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's like when you're like a good coordinator, when you're a coach that's in want, like in vogue, right? Like people want to bring you in, you can dictate. And the Eagles weren't able to bring in any of those coaches that were hot commodities, right? Like they didn't even try to interview Bieniemy because there's no way Reed and Peterson would have told Bieniemy like, yeah, go, this can be great for your career. Like, no, you know what I mean? Eric Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs under Reed. So I think independent of who Sirianni is and what his vibe is, always the guy that they hired was going to be a third fiddle to Howie Roseman and to Jeffrey Lurie in terms of football decisions, how the team should be built and why it should be built that way. I, in the same way that I like Doug's vibe, like Sirianni's vibe.
Yeah.
In the same way that I like Doug's offense, I like Sirianni's offense. So I think that the Eagles can do good designs, and I think they can, and get like good locker room vibes, and have everybody in alignment and whatever. Not having to deal with Carson, obviously, and kind of how that whole situation unfolded will certainly help. Jalen seems like he's really an Eddie steady guy, but to me, this isn't a conversation about Sirianni. It's a conversation about the Eagles will always be playing from behind in the coaching carousel cycle because of the reputation a general manager has created for himself around the league.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. And I agree. I like Sirianni. We don't know how these things are going to go, right? The fan base at one point, everybody wanted Ben McAdoo, and we ended up with Doug Peterson. Everybody was like, ho-hum, vanilla ice cream. Well, and he ends up winning the Super Bowl. So,
and he fed his team a lot of vanilla ice cream, and it worked.
That's right.
Full circle.
They bought in to the ice cream. Buy in with the Kist and Solak show and stay after the break, because we're going to talk about some more. Yeah, that was terrible. We're going to talk about, I'm rusty, man. Come on, man. It's been 4 months since I've recorded the podcast. We're going to talk about some more of my takes that I have on my list here. We're also going to talk about some dude that said some really nasty stuff and looked really wrong. That's coming up next here on the Kist and Solak show. And we are back here on the Kist and Solak show, episode 222, brought to you by the fine folks at SB Nation and Bleeding Green Nation. Michael Kist here with Benjamin Solak. Ben, let's kind of go through these rapid fire takes, and you can give me your quick thoughts, because we've got about 15 minutes here. Jalen Hurts is the man, but he's not the guy. True or false?
True, if I'm reading it correctly, which is to say that he's awesome and we love him and we hope he's really good. I think he's going to be a really good backup quarterback forever, but I just don't think, in terms of how you want to build your team, he's the ideal starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I love the guy. I really, really do. And we appreciate him. The interview with Rachel was great. We thank him for doing that.
And as my wife reminds me every time he gets on the screen, he's extremely handsome.
Yeah.
Good looking dude.
My confidence level in Jalen Hurts just goes through the roof every time I hear him talk, every time I see him, every time there's a quote up there from him. I think he's like I said on Twitter, no crap, the locker room has bought into this guy, right? I buy into him every time I hear him speak, and then I'm like, well, I don't.
And that's how he was in Alabama. That's how he was in Oklahoma. I mean, that was expected, and it's glad to see he's delivering on that. Now, he got better as a passer, Alabama to Oklahoma, got better as a passer, Oklahoma to Eagles year one. Got to keep that going, because we got strides to take in terms of the passing game for sure. Yeah.
Devonta Smith's pencil legs scare me. True or false?
Yeah. I mean, so I had Devonta as my wide receiver 3. In this past class, I had him below Chase and below Waddle, and it had nothing to do with talent. It had everything to do with it's really difficult for me to believe that player puts together a 10-year, 16-game per season, 17-game per season career on the league, which it's worth noting. Injury risk is a run with every player. It doesn't matter what they look like. And so it's trying to prognosticate that is tough, and trying to, build around that is tough. But at the end of the day, he was in Alabama. They couldn't put weight on him. This is how heavy he's always going to be. And the league may be more spaced out and lighter than it was before, but it's still a violent game. And I do worry about his ability. I think he's going to look great day one. I think he's going to be awesome when he's out there. I can't wait to watch him. I just worry about when he incurs that first injury, as every player does, what the rehab process looks like and how he's able to come back successfully.
Yeah, I think he's going to be electric on the field, man. I mean, his releases, his route running, all that stuff. I think it's up there, but it just I can't see those legs without going, man, I wish I could just shove peanut butter and jelly sandwiches down his face. It's time to accept that Miles Sanders is mediocre, and that's okay. Agree or disagree?
I wouldn't say mediocre, just because to me, mediocre is he is that. To me, he's inconsistent. Let's
talk about that. I think he's good enough to bust off some big runs. I think he's an explosive playmaker. However, from down to down, there's a wild variance in what can happen there, whether it be running or leading the league in drops as a receiver, right?
Yes. I very much agree. Marlon Mack was the player I compared to at running back for Indianapolis at a UCF, which it might be hard to remember Marlon Mack because Jonathan Taylor is 100% taking his job. But
Mack had amazing splash plays in college, but the play-to-play was bad.
That's the thing, is I think that Sanders is going to get like some, good angles with the threat for Jalen Hurts and under read option stuff. He's going to rip off some big plays. I think that, it's good. Like you can pull any play, any game, 2020. He'll be behind like good run blocking, even when the Eagles' offensive line injuries were at their worst. And he's just not regularly making the right decision with the right timing. And it's been a couple years now, right? So
Yeah.
I still think that he could well become a good player. It's rare that we see a leap at this stage in your career, but he could become that player. I think he's always going to be a helpful player to have around, but that's usually what you want your change of pace guy to be. And right now he's not the change of pace guy. I think this backfield gets very, very committee-y early. That's how Sirianni ran it in Indianapolis. And I think Boston Scott's going to be a big part of this team. I know everybody's excited about Kenny Gainwell, but Scott's taken almost all the second-team reps throughout camp and the preseason, and he looks good.
Yeah. We love Boston Scott here. We got to shout our boy out. Here's another one. I don't know even why I have this written down. You don't have to be a dick about Zach Ertz. So, guys, don't be a dick about whatever's going on with Zach Ertz. I'm not sure when I typed that out. Maybe it was because he wanted to be traded or whatever the case may be. But, take it easy on the guy. If he wants out, I get it.
I really greatly enjoyed his press conference. He was like, listen, I love Philly. And I've always wanted to retire here. Okay. Well, I believe you that you love Philly, and I believe that you always want to retire here. I do believe that you got over that feeling at some point in the past offseason and were willing to go elsewhere. Yeah. And now, you kind of are falling in line. And honestly, Jalen Hurts and his improvements throughout camp and his vibe probably does help with that, right? Because he doesn't feel like I've got to deal with this bad second round pick rookie, whatever. But yeah, I agree. You don't have to be annoying about Jalen Hurts. You don't have to about Zach Ertz. You don't have to constantly bring up this and that, whatever. If brother wants to go play somewhere else where the vibes are a little bit better and he's a Super Bowl championship in his sights, cough Buffalo, end cough. Go for it, man. I wish you prosperous success. Yeah.
And I think Buffalo would be a great place for him. I would really like to see him in that offense and kind of have a career resurgence, because last year he's just not with it, man. And I don't know what was going on there. All right, last one. Stop calling players soft unless it's Andre Dillard.
Brother, I was reflecting on this the other day. I've predicted a lot of players be good coming out of the draft and been wrong. We can think of a couple, maybe off the top of our head, who played wide receiver and running back for the Eagles, respectively. I wish I was good at figuring out the good players. I'm not, right. But I'm good at figuring out the bad players. And just Dillard, he looks exactly like I thought he was going to look in the league. He didn't want the smoke in the Pac-12. You're playing offensive tackle in the National Football League, brother. Yeah. Really excited to watch Jordan Mailata this year. I think that Mailata is always just going to be a middle-tier tackle. It's not dissimilar to Alejandro Villanueva, who was the Eagles' reclamation project tackle before Mailata. Yep. An Army vet who wanted to play in the league, had the size to do it, ended up being a fine tackle for the Steelers, signed a $6 million one-year deal with the Ravens. He's just going to be a journeyman veteran star. He's going to be fine. I think Mailata becomes that. That's obviously a humongous success for a seventh-round pick. I don't think he's going to be Peters, but I'm very excited for Mailata. Love him. He's one of my favorite players ever to talk to. I've talked to 6 players, so it's not really that big. But yeah, with Dillard, it's just this is an example of where a lot of football guy GMs get a lot of stuff wrong, and it's nice having a guy like Howie who's more analytical and whatever, but sometimes you do need the football guy influence, and this is an example where somebody should have been telling you can't trade up for this tackle. He just doesn't have it to hang in the NFL, which is a shame.
Yeah, and if we could kind of, because I wasn't as high on Dillard as everybody else, I was a lot lower. I think I said it would be great if he could be drafted in the 25 to 40 range, because I think that's where he belongs. Drafted slightly earlier in that because he slid, because I guess a lot of football guys, in the interview process and talking with people around him, kind of figured that out, and we don't have access to that information, but we could kind of tell maybe this guy doesn't want the smoke, and apparently he doesn't want the smoke, and he's losing out to a 7th rounder that didn't play football in his life until a few years ago. So very, very interesting. A lot of people thought he was the best pass protector in the draft, and the guy can't get in the field. So that's my rapid fire takes. Another rapid fire question I'll give to you before we get to the last topic here. Over under 7 wins for the Eagles. 17 game schedule makes that tough.
Yeah, 7 and 10.
I think it's the right number. I'm going to go under. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go under. And I think that number gets some benefit of the bad division doubt. Dallas, Giants, Washington, none of them really conceived of as contenders. But the problem is, I don't think they can outscore Dallas, because Dallas is an elite offense. I don't think they can score on the Giants, the football team, because I think the football team has an elite defense. I think the Giants are going to get there. I'm really big on the Giants' defense this year as a unit that emerges.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles have some elite position groups, offensive line, defensive line, but they don't have an elite unit. I think they got clear problems on the offense in the passing game and clear problems in the defense in the pass defense. Not ideal for the 21st century of the NFL, by the way. So to me, even when they play those bad teams in their bad division, they still are going to have problems dealing with the strengths of those teams because they don't really have an elite unit to hang their hat on. So to me, I'm under 7 wins on the Eagles. I think they are competitive. I think they're in a lot of games, but young teams often don't win those games late. I think that they get some momentum late in the season. They'll probably win, like 3 of their last 5 or something.
Right. That's what that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll be like, we can build on this, which is true. It's a little bit hacky, but it's true. But yeah, I would generally lean the under on the 7 wins. And maybe that's just because I watch Spencer Rattler highlights and they just make me happy and I want to have him, but we'll see.
I tuned into Spencer Rattler and the first one was a pick and I was
listen. He's just he's 15% knucklehead right now. And if we can just get him down to 5%, 10, 8% knucklehead, we're golden.
He's exciting, man. I'd have fun watching him for sure, whether he's good or not.
The ball comes off his hand like it was preordained by God to do exactly that. It's really quite something. Can I give you one quick, also rapid fire tape?
Yeah.
This season, so decreed. Brandon Graham gets double-digit sacks.
Finally, please.
There's an extra game.
Yes. It's perfectly set up for him.
Right. They're going to run that tight front stuff, right? They're going to put Javon Hargrave over the nose, Fletch in between the guard and the tackle, Milton Williams between the guard and the tackle, or Derek Bernard, whatever. And then Brandon Graham's going to be your one designated pass rusher, wide 9 alignment. All right. He's going to get one-on-one reps with tackles, going to clean up some stuff. He's going to get 10.5 sacks. He's going to go in the Eagles Ring of Fame. He's going to smile, which melts my heart every single time. I love him to death.
Yeah. Boom. Love it. Okay. Ben, before the break, I mentioned somebody said some mean things. I think I'll refresh your memory here, and I want to kind of respond to them. Adam Kaplan, basically berating beat reporters on Inside the Bird. I think it was about BLG and Jimmy Kempski saying they don't know what they're looking at when it came to Travis Fulgham's practice because those guys were bashing his practice, and he's saying, "Hey, Travis Fulgham actually had a really good practice. Those guys don't know what they're talking about." People are laughing behind their backs.
This is current free agent Travis Fulgham?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes,
clarify.
He wasn't. He did not, in fact, stick on the roster. And look, that's not even like the point. The point was, and he didn't name these are our guys specifically, right? But me personally, I'm not going to throw shade and hide behind generalities like a coward, right? If I got a problem with somebody, they're going to know it. So if Kaplan hears this,
why did you bring me on this podcast? Why did you doing this? You just put me in the sidecar and take me on this journey.
You're with me with this. If I'm saying it, it's coming out of your mouth too. So enjoy it.
I would have known what Kaplan said on his podcast if I listened to it ever.
And maybe Kaplan listens to ours. And if Kaplan hears this, right, and he has a problem, and we see each other in Mobile or in Indy or in Vegas, and he wants to speak face to face about it, we can have a conversation like adults. But he's going to know this is about him. There's going to be no confusion that this is about him. That's how that's supposed to go, right? Name somebody if you really got a problem with it. I'm not going to be a coward and say, "Oh, well, these people I won't name get laughed at by people within the organization," because the same people smiling in your face are pulling the same deal with you behind your back. And if you're too blind to see that, you're a sucker. They are laughing at you too.
Real quick, if people are laughing about firstly, my job is to laugh at the organization. I do a lot. It'd be perfectly fine comeuppance, and I would very much expect if people in the organization laugh at BGN radio takes, because let's be honest, that's what we do to y'all every single week.
Right.
I also would find my opportunities to laugh back. I don't really care too much about what the people in the building think about my takes, because they're not for them; they're for the fans.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we're not scouts or GMs or anything like that. And to be frank, I've never gone to Kaplan for X and O breakdowns or scouting reports or anything like that. The guy talks with coaches. That's and then he regurgitates it. We hear it all the time. So what? You get to carry water for people. I don't care, right? And Kaplan could have been making a great point surrounding that speech, even if it wasn't ultimately wrong about Foga. Maybe he did have a really great practice. It doesn't matter. It's just because he took that opportunity to try to tear other people down to build himself up. And there is enough room and space in this market for everybody. Like this market, these fans, they are rabid, they are hardcore, they consume everything. There is room for inside the birds. There is room for bird with friends. History has shown that it's not taking anything off my plate, off Ben's plate, off BLG's plate, off nobody's plate. I don't lose my house if 94 WIP has an Eagles podcast. I don't have to gatekeep anybody. I don't care. Do it. We'll do it better. We'll do it bigger, just like we always have. But like, go for it, right? I love a little competition. Hell, I'll even shout the name of your podcast out on this podcast and give you some free pub on the highest rated, most downloaded Eagles podcast there is. That's what bothers me about it. You don't have to do all that extra stuff. And if you've got a problem with somebody, tell them what's up. If you can't help but speak on it. I mean, half the tight relationship that I have in this business started out with conflict, but back when I was on Twitter like that. I don't hide.
That's very true.
I don't hide from anybody, and I'm not going to do it now. And look, I've argued with other Eagles beats before, and we've had back and forth. There's always a respect there, and I'm never talking behind their back. I don't believe in that crap. So, like, just chill, Adam. All right, listen, folks.
Adam.
We don't have to do this, right? We don't have to do this. No hard feelings, Adam. Love you.
Cannot believe you brought me on this podcast. Why? This makes me uncomfortable.
Ben, say goodbye to the gentle listeners. It's about that time.
Hey, listen. Thank you as always. As daily, joining us in the Kist and Solak show on BGN Radio. We do appreciate you swinging by. I just ended the first show that I'm the official host of for The Ringer, and I ended it with, thank you so much for swinging by. And I was like, oh, man, everything is the same. Thank you so much for swinging by. We do appreciate it. As Mike said, and I won't bear to repeat it because I'm not in tune enough with the feed and with the new folks to correctly communicate the schedule. So please, as you are continuing to listen to BGN Radio, which if memory serves is the biggest and the best, most downloaded Eagles podcast on the market, back at the top of the show, Mike walked through what the new schedule in season will be now that we've had some of the staffing changes. And so please catch on to that. Make sure you follow all those folks on social because BGN Radio is a family. And even as, some of us move further away, we're still part of that gang. We're happy to bring new people into it as well and coach them up and to be doing awesome the job that you guys expect whenever you come in onto the feed. And so thank you so much for listening to BGN Radio, a feed of which I will always be the biggest fan and proponent, even if the color green I'm rocking is a little different now than it once was back then. We love you guys so much. It's such a good feed. And I'm excited for this Eagles season. Go Birds, fly Eagles fly, things of that nature.
We all we got. We all we need. Fly Eagles fly.